Yo, what up, FBH fam? Appreciate you guys clicking on the vid. Obviously, you see the name. It says enough, but I don't gotta go crazy on this intro, right? We're actually in the No Jumper headquarters. Can't tell you where it is, secret location, but we're invited here. Appreciate Adam and the team for letting us come here. Noosh, what's good, bro?
ADAM22, you understand? ADAM22. Yo, we talked about everything, his come up, you know, the porn industry, how it feels to be a millionaire, you know, his team, what he's building here. Yo, it was a great episode.
Yeah.
He's a dope guy, super genuine. So enjoy the show.
And guys, the episode is, of course, brought to you by the team at Bodog. We love you. Let's get into the episode.
They know that I go flip mode when I bust the rhymes. Man's on a different thing, man, I told him 100 times. I did a bunch of crimes, and none of them were done for the vine. So you can take that bullshit and stick that where the sun don't shine. The summer's up, it's about to get real cold. Late nights in the studio with the bros.
Welcome back to the MBH podcast, Money Buys Happiness. Guys, before we get into it, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, do the duties, comment, hate comments. We love them all. Everything.
Drop those hate comments. We're going to do a reaction video soon about all the hate comments. Those are fucking hilarious.
Guys, look around, all right? We're not in the same fucking studio that we usually are.
You know where we are.
Yes. I don't got to say much.
We're in the No Jumper studio. ADAM22. What up?
What's good? What's good, bro?
What's going on?
Oh, man. Listen, first of all, appreciate you having us here.
My pleasure, man. Yeah, happy to have you guys here.
Yes. It's a crazy studio setup. You said you only been here, like, what, 2 months?
Yeah.
Where were you guys before?
Like right around here.
Oh,
but
okay.
we bought this shit and
Let's go.
upgraded to a way bigger spot so we could film a bunch of different podcasts at once. So we're able to be like infinitely more productive here. So it's nice.
For sure.
Yeah.
You have a few different studios in here.
Yeah, we got like 3 different studios. We're only using 2 of them so far. We're working on 1 more, but yeah, definitely we're just kind of able to crank out a lot more content out of the spot.
You got a pretty big team too.
Yeah.
How many people on your team right now?
I do not know the actual number, but there's probably like 10 or more people working out there on any given day. And then we have a bunch of freelancers and stuff who we do stuff with over email.
How do you go about finding the team and the people that are on your team? How do you do that?
That's the hardest part
Yeah.
because it's like sometimes you see somebody working for somebody. Like I have this feeling when I look at the Nelk team or like the Full Send guys all the time where I'm like, how the fuck did they find this like killer grown ass executive dude that just knows how to like build out businesses or whatever? And it's just like, I don't know. It's tough because it feels like everybody who's really good is already taken, and you know, and it's like you could hire somebody and spend like 6 months getting to know them and working with them, and then all of a sudden figure out that you just don't like them and you don't think you're ever going to be able to work with them, and then you got to fucking start from scratch. It's a fucking nightmare. Like what I should really do is I should take like 1 or 2 days a week off to not do interviews and just focus on building the team. But it's just so easy for me to just grind out a fuckload of content every week, so it's tough.
That's the whole thing, because like obviously you're in the content business, but in terms of like the team and stuff like that, we always say you want to find like a hard worker, but then someone who also like meshes in the culture.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
You gotta be coachable too. They gotta be definitely coachable.
Yeah, somebody has to be good, but and it's like especially with this business, you just realize that it's like some people get social media and they get the speed of social media, and it's normal for them to be paying attention to what's going on, paying attention to what's trending. You know, like there's some people who just like, for us, like they think it's completely acceptable if like a news story comes out, they think it's totally fine for it to go up like 6 hours after it happened. And it's like, if you really care about what we're doing, it's like, no. If you care about the difference between getting 80,000 likes on an Instagram post or 20,000 likes on an Instagram post, you need to get this shit up now. Like we got to fucking do it. Like it's just a sense of urgency that like a lot of people are lacking. And that's just like one thing that's kind of hard to tell before you hire somebody, because a lot of people seem like they're about it, but then when you hire them, you realize they don't really even look at their phone like that.
Yeah. So then like in terms of like the team now, do you tell them like, yo, you got to be on your phone 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10? Like, is there an off hour for these guys, or are they going 24/7?
I feel like it's for social media in terms of doing coverage of the news and everything. It's kind of better to have like a bunch of people who are doing like a reasonable amount, or you could just have like one person where it's like, hey, this is your entire fucking life. But then at the same time, it's like that person is going to go to dinner with their girl at 8 p.m. on a Friday night, and if the craziest news ever happens at 9 p.m. and they're not looking at their phone for 4 or 5 hours, you kind of want to have somebody who's on call paying attention to that shit. So it's tough.
Yeah, like 24/7.
So do you have like interviews where you run, or you just, because like we're trying to go through it too, we're trying to build our team. What we found, I think, is like when someone reaches out to us and has been a fan of us and knows like the culture and the mindset that we have, we find that person is usually more successful than let's say running a bunch of interviews and having people come in for a job. What do you think about that? Have you had that experience?
Yeah.
Like people hitting you up that already know about you and
Yeah, and a lot of our employees realistically were kind of like fans of the brand
Yeah.
to the extent where that's why they were sending in resumes or trying to get hired or whatever, and that definitely helps, you know, if they're passionate about the content and they really have an opinion about it. But then sometimes it's like our content is so far reaching that there's just we cover so many things that it's like I feel like, you know, we interviewed this kid, Nick Fuentes, who's like a fucking white nationalist, basically. And like, we did it just because everybody wanted us to do it. And we were just like, fuck it. We're going to actually fucking have a conversation with this guy. I bet if you asked all those employees out there, most of them couldn't tell you anything about this dude. You
Yeah.
know, it's like maybe 20% of them watched the interview or something. Like, I feel like, but then like they probably know about most of the rapper interviews we do and stuff. It's like we just do so much stuff all over the place that I can't blame them for not really getting all of it.
Like tuning into all of
is
it.
there anyone you guys would say no to in terms of a pod because it's just too much or it cause a ruckus?
Definitely there's people we say no to, but you know, now that we had this white nationalist kid on here, I don't know.
I think you guys are good.
Hard to go back, eh?
Yeah, it kind of was like the one thing that it was always like the question of like, would you ever do that? Like, you know,
Yeah.
when you talk to anybody, would you talk to that dude? But I mean, yeah, well, I hate doing interviews with girls where they just talk shit about famous people or like say I banged this famous dude or whatever. I'm super over that. That I don't really want to feed into anymore. Other people I wouldn't interview. I mean, just anybody you feel like isn't being honest with you.
Yeah.
Like some people want to come in and they want to act like everything's great and like everything's going great for them in their career, and you know they're full of shit and they're just never gonna let on. And I find that really annoying. Or even like, I hate interviewing people who are like drunk or on
Like
drugs
toots.
or like you know, everybody's always like interview Bam, and it's like for me, I don't really want to interview a drunk ass Bam. Like it just doesn't really like. It's sad to me. Like
Yeah.
I would rather see you get your life together and then we could have some conversations about that. But then like I interviewed Dennis Rodman and this motherfucker is the craziest drunk you ever seen in your life.
For real, eh?
And we just did it, and it kind of sucked because we had to reschedule like 3 times because he was getting drunk as shit in the morning.
Too sauced?
He was just
Damn.
getting drunk. Yeah, like they made us do it at like noon or like 11 or some shit so that he wouldn't really have that much time to get drunk.
Jeez, man.
But then like 3 times in a row, he still was drunk as fuck.
So you had to run it. Just had to run it.
And so then but then one day they finally got him to come when he wasn't drunk, and I was like, all right, finally we got it.
As a podcaster, like how do you like? I think we're trying to find that balance too of like guests that we want to talk to and guests that would get the numbers up. You
Right.
know, like I know Joe Rogan preaches it a lot. He's like, yo, I just get people on that I want to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's not ideal for any podcaster, especially when you're trying to grow. So how do you balance that out of saying like this is a guest I actually want to talk to, maybe they're not that big, and then this is someone that the fans want to see.
Right, and it's nice if you're Joe Rogan because I feel like his fan base is such that they will pretty much listen to him talk about whatever. He just has such a big audience that it's like he's going to do all right either way. And with even like a platform of our size is pretty big, it's like, yeah, we definitely still have that same problem where, you know, we could like I have an interview I'm doing later today with this author from the New York Times, or like this dude Joe Coscarelli, who's like a really great writer for the New York Times, great journalist, just wrote this amazing book about Lil Baby and Atlanta and everything. And it's like in my head it's just kind of like, how am I going to clickbait this, or what am I going to title this that will get people to watch this? Because I think he has a super interesting perspective. He's probably like the smartest person on my interview this week, but like it's still going to come down to the clickbait of like to get people to actually watch it, which kind of sucks because then
Yeah.
it's like at the same time I know that if I interview the Island Boys again, then I'm going to get 1 million views,
Yeah.
you know? And it's,
So you guys still think about views generally in terms of like when you're picking a guest?
yeah, but then at the same time, I try to also just have integrity with it. And it's like, you know, I interviewed this dude, Freddie Madball, who's the singer of this band Madball. It's like a classic New York City hardcore band. And it's like, I know that hardcore is like 1% as popular as hip hop, right? So I know that interview is not going to be some huge interview, but I also just have to like think to myself, why did you start doing interviews in the first place? And what standard do you hold yourself to? And one of the main things that I really want to do when I do an interview is I want that interview to be the interview that people watch after you die. Like, I just always think about that, and not like I'm in a hurry for anybody to die or anything. And I hope it's many, many years before Freddie dies. But I just feel like I want this to be something like I don't care really how it does right now. Like I want to know that it'll do well over time. Like, you know, and it does. It's great when an interview just does a shitload of views right away. But I try to think about it in the long term. A lot of the biggest interviews I've ever done were like nothing when they came out, and then the person got super famous. So for me, it's like, you know, I just try to do it for the right reason. And sometimes it can be weird when I do like 4 interviews in a day and I know that none of those are really going to be ones that get like big views. And if I were to just think about those interviews in terms of money, I would be like, damn, what a not great day that I just had. Not really making too much money, but it's like, whatever. I gotta think past that. You gotta think long term.
So I want to go. Let's go back. Let's go back a bit in terms of like No Jumper. I know you did the BMX stuff, but you talked about that a lot. So we'll kind of skip that and just go right to No Jumper. I think a lot of people, our audience too, wants to just know like, fuck, you built something pretty massive here. You know what I mean? In terms of like the space you're in.
Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, that was huge. The audience, the whole thing, man, like the team. So I want to go back to the beginning. Just kind of walk us through how the fuck it even started, what it was like, because I think it was pretty much just you, right, at the beginning. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to kind of describe it is just that I had been doing this BMX website for damn near 10 years at this point, and I really was looking for ways to make the content more enjoyable and like more interesting to me, because it was a blog that was just videos and news about BMX, and it was just sort of, it was really innovative when I started it, and then by the time 10 years had gone by, it was just kind of like every other website, and it wasn't anything that interesting about it. I wasn't feeling that motivated or whatever, so I started to lean into YouTube super heavy. I started doing vlogs where I'm just filming us going out and riding and everything, and we started to have a lot of success with that, started making like pretty legit money off of that. And around the same time, I'm like, I want to start doing podcasts too, because I really want to be able to like have these conversations on camera with BMX pros and everything like that. I did that like hardcore for like a year or two, and then at some point I started interviewing rappers as well, and I started talking to like people who own brands and clothing entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And I just started doing YouTubers and porn stars, and it was just like I had been toiling away in the little sandbox of BMX content for like 10 years, where even the biggest podcast I was going to do was going to get like 30,000 views, right? Yeah. Like it's a small world, you know? Yeah. And everybody in that world kind of wants to be able to do something outside of that world, but it's really, really tough because it's hard to make people really care about bike tricks when all this stuff is very, very like technical. And like, you know, if somebody does a 20 stair rail switch, it's like that means nothing to the average person.
I have no idea what that even is.
Yeah. It's just like, what does that mean? It's like, so as a BMX dude, and I think more people get this now, but you have to figure out how to like translate your content or your culture into something that's going to make more sense to, you know, the average person if you really want to go viral. And in BMX and stuff, there's a lot of stigma around going viral or trying to blow up or trying to be some big deal or whatever like that. So it's like, you know, but then I started doing these podcasts in the BMX world, and then I just kind of like get this opportunity, and I just kind of ran with it in terms of doing other interviews. And in the beginning, my vision of it was really just to keep doing interviews. I didn't think about doing like a consistent weekly podcast like I do with the No Jumper Show or my other podcast, Sledge Lords, where I just you know, talk to my friends every week after week, and just build rapport, and over time we just kind of build this connection between each other. I wasn't thinking about ever doing brand deals or anything like that. I wasn't thinking about how we were going to really make money off this besides AdSense, you know. And then I wasn't thinking about anything besides just doing the actual content, you know. And then thanks. And as time went by, it just kind of became more and more like, oh, okay, like, you know, because we have the store, and it's like the store became more and more of a hub where there's people going there. We're filming these crazy ass vlogs with people, just rappers coming all day, hanging out and stuff, and it's just the content just started to really like flow in a way that now you have brands like Cool Kicks and shit that have a store. They make content out of the store. Everybody understands that this just makes sense, whatever. And it's like we were sort of early on doing the combination of retail and making content, and then the biggest like innovation, I guess, is that like about 2 years ago we started bringing in a lot of other hosts to do content on the channel. So now it's not just me, even though I still do a fuckload of content on the channel. Yeah. But that's really how it became more of like a network and something like a lot bigger than me. Because before that, it was mostly me.
How do you even think about podcasts at that time? Because even in that moment, there wasn't many. Like, was there anyone you were looking up to and being like, oh fuck, like I see what this guy is doing, like, yeah, let me give that a go?
I remember I went to in 2012 I went to Barcelona for a month with a couple of my friends to ride BMX and film for this video that we did. And during that time, my phone like barely worked. So I had a lot of time to like really just think about like, what do you want to be doing with your life? And during that time, for some reason, I was also just like kind of discovering Joe Rogan in 2012, and I'm watching his podcast all the time, and he's like maybe 300 episodes in, and I'm just like, this is tight. And then I start thinking, I'm like, there has to be rap podcasts too. So I start listening to Joe Budden's podcast. I started listening to Combat Jack and a couple other like small YouTube or small hip hop podcasters at the time. And then I'm also like at that time, 2012, 2013, I'm starting to go to a lot more hip hop concerts and stuff. So I'm starting to like kind of be around rappers a bit, and I'm making a couple of rapper friends here and there. And I'm starting to like, it's starting to like not feel like it would be that big a deal to interview one of them or to like start to get into this world more. So I start kind of like shooting my shot, and I'm just like going to a lot of shows and just being like a cool dude who just shows up at shows and stuff. And that's kind of how I transferred into, and then once I got a store in 2014 in downtown LA. It's like the worst part of LA, like right next to Skid Row. Like if you guys went there right now with me, you would not believe that we had a fucking store there, because it's gnarly as shit. And once I had that space, it was like pressure. Like, you know that you are going to do a podcast. Like, I knew I was kind of going to be a successful podcaster before I did it. I just had like a really strong feeling of like, I know how to do this. All I have to do is set it up, and then if I start recording, it'll be good. And I know people to interview that nobody else is thinking about interviewing, so I'm gonna, at the very least, have some hits from doing that.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of just kept pushing. And even still to this day, it's like I just wake up and I just go like fucking, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is. I just grind content, and I have a whole team around me to basically make it so that I can grind more content.
So the store itself, like I want to talk about the store a bit. When did that start, and was that just you?
The store on some shit that we started downtown for a couple of years, and then we moved to Hollywood and Melrose, which is kind of like the store that everybody went to for the most part. That was just like, I had this BMX website for all these years, and I really wanted to do like a real world version of it. I just knew that like we were already selling a bunch of stuff online, but if we have a store, we could sell more of it, and we could like kind of have it be a hub for the scene. So I always just believed in the power of retail, and I really still do. And I really want to open another store. We've just kind of been slacking on actually getting it done. But yeah, that's the whole thing for me, is I just see a ton of value in that. And if I was like FaZe, I would want to have a sick ass big store in LA. But a lot of these like retail places, they don't really like, or a lot of these like online brands, they don't really see the value in it. So
they don't care to do it.
And it's been like 3 years almost since we had a store, so I kind of feel like a buster, because I've like letting that part of my whole mission sort of just
fall to the side.
Yeah. Which is good though, because we've really been able to be focused on building the content here, which is nice.
And I want to go back quickly in terms of like, you start No Jumper now, and you said like you knew you'd kind of be successful in it. At the very least, you'd have some hits.
Yeah.
At the beginning, when you're trying to get these guys on, how are you outreaching to these guys? You know what I mean? Especially because maybe you didn't have necessarily the platform you have now, right? Mm-hmm. What's that outreach look like?
I would just make a big ass list. I remember making a list of like 200 different names of like different people that I would like to have on the podcast. And in the beginning, I was very down to like interview people that nobody was going to watch. Like, in the sense of like, I'm going to do the most obscure interviews with some random fucking dude that's friends with this rapper or whatever, just to get to that rapper and just to lay the groundwork of like, oh, this is a cool platform. And I knew that I only really needed a few, minor hits of like different people. I kind of knew I could get Ian Connor early on. And I just knew like, if I get Ian Connor, it is going to be like, that is going to stamp my podcast as so cool. And I fucking got him to do it early on, and it was just like, it stamped the podcast as being a thing, like so early on, even though it might not have been that many views. Yeah. And that was kind of the whole plan. And I would pick, like, I had the game plan, like, all right, I want to interview legendary rappers. Like, I want to interview 3 6 Mafia. Yeah. Well, I noticed that there was a flyer online. The local bar that I would go to had Gangsta Boo of 3 6 Mafia doing a birthday party there. And she's like a woman that has been signed to 3 6 Mafia, whatever, for a long ass time. I go to the party. I just like say hi, introduce myself, tell her I have a podcast, whatever. She's cool. take a photo together. I post on Instagram. I tag her. She fucking hits me up. Because she responds to my DM or whatever because she sees that I have a decent amount of followers. All of a sudden, I get the interview with her. All of a sudden, boom! I turn that into interviewing DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia, and then I'm interviewing I'm just kind of able to take that, and it's like, well, I interviewed a couple people in 3-6 Mafia, so then when I'm hitting other people up to interview them, I could say, hey, I know you fuck with these guys, they had good interviews with me, you should fuck with me too, and it was just I just kept pressing that over and over and over of just treating it like a big fucking networking game,
Yeah, man, that's literally how we built this thing straight up. Just interview this person in hopes to get that person. Yeah, and you just kind of keep going around it.
And you can even make it more explicit, where you could interview somebody and then just hit them up afterwards and be like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm just getting this platform off the ground. We're kind of newer or whatever. If you have anybody that you think would be down to do the podcast, I've done that where I just straight up put it on them and just let them toss me some names. And that actually kind of sucks because usually they'll give you a name of somebody who needs an interview, not somebody that you would want to interview. But or I try to be shameless. I try to DM people that I have no business getting an interview with and just straight up ask them to do an interview. With the game. I asked the game to do the interview 3-4 times over the course of 3-4 years, and then finally just said okay.
Dude, I have some guys that I literally DM same thing, no business DMing, where I've messaged them 6 times.
Yeah,
just to get it done, bro. Shoot your shot. That's how it gets.
You want to know why? It's because saying no gets awkward over time. The more times you say no, the more awkward it gets, right?
It's fuck, I gotta
because
do it
if somebody wanted a job interview with you and you think they're kind of weird and they asked you and if they weren't weird about it, you just keep seeing them and stuff, but they keep asking you. Eventually, you're gonna be like, oh my god, fuck, I'm gonna give them a job interview just to because it's kind of weird saying no this many times.
True, 3-4
I feel like
times.
some guests though too, they have such a good conversation with you, and they like the podcast, that them referring someone actually benefits them as well.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
True. Yeah,
I think that's been happening a lot with us too. In terms of actually interviewing, the skill of interviewing, did you have that right off the bat?
Well, yeah, I had kind of always thought about it, because even before No Jumper and before the BMX podcast, I was doing text interviews with people. I would send somebody an email with 20 questions in it, or I would go back and forth with them on AIM and or just texting, doing an interview like that. I was always doing that during the blog days and everything. So I was already thinking about what is a good conversation? What are the questions I want this person to answer? What are the things that other people are going to be scared to ask them that I could ask them? Stuff like that. And then once I got into it, I just started learning more and more about just techniques or ways to get my point across, or what works, what didn't work, what basing opinion. Maybe you say something and the audience all makes fun of you in the comments, and then you kind of have to be honest with yourself of did I sound kind of cringy right there? Or have the courage to be nah, they're bugging. I sounded cool as fuck when I said that.
Fuck you.
I mean, that might be how you feel, but that's definitely something I put a shitload of time and effort into. I am technically working on this course about podcasting that I will hopefully put out one of these days, that will be a lot about conversation and just how to be good at it,
Would you call yourself one of the GOATs?
In rap, yeah, I guess that's probably safe to say. In general, I was probably not safe to say, but I mean, I definitely feel if you take a new rapper, let's say, or if you were to take any rapper, I feel if Jay-Z had to do an interview with everybody in rap right now, I kind of feel I would do the best interview. I'm that confident. Or there's a few other people I would put in the conversation, but I feel I'm up there, and I feel I've put in the work to be able to say that without sounding crazy.
Well, I mean, if you look at any up and coming rapper, essentially, if they get on No Jumper, that's it for them. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a staple for them. Yo, I made it. You know what I mean? I did a No Jumper interview.
Yeah, that's a great feeling, and especially when they're in here and they're looking around and they're like, bruh, I was watching this when I was 14, dreaming about being on this shit, and you're that's crazy, damn, I was so used to being the new kid on the block that was having to introduce people to no, you have to go downtown and park in a homeless encampment to do an interview with me at a random bike shop in the back of the bike shop. And people are like, what the fuck? And now it's people want to fuck with it. But, but then still the interviews you really want, you're still going to have to work for,
It's true. Facts.
Yeah.
When did you, in terms of the pod, when did you start monetizing off the podcast itself? When did you start making money off it?
I mean, right away, it was oh, I have the AdSense turned on, so I'm doing some interview that gets 10,000 views, and I'm making $100, and it's like, it's not nothing. It's
Yeah.
like still like I remember thinking that to myself all the time when I was starting. Like, all right, you made $300 this month. Like, it's not that bad. Like, it's something. Like, be thankful for it. Like, it's only gonna grow from here. But my goal forever with the BMX shit was to get $10,000 a month from YouTube, and then I finally hit that. And I like stopped doing it right away and just focused on No Jumper because I was just passionate about No Jumper shit. And like, I had just hit 10,000 on the BMX shit, and I was just like, you know what? I really don't give a fuck about this money. I just want to fucking really chase after meeting as many people as I can and doing these No Jumper interviews with them. Because at that point, I genuinely 100% felt like I had done everything that there was to do in BMX. Yeah. So even though I'm making $10,000 a month, doing all these vlogs and going to the skate park every day, all day, it's like, I didn't love it anymore.
Did you get some slack from, let's say, the BMX community when you tried to adapt the content and get into something else?
Yeah, some, but it was also like, I feel like most people who ride BMX bikes listen to rap and shit. So they were like, a lot of them were kind of proud of me or like looking at what I was doing, like, wow, like he might be sort of like turning his back on the bike ride and stuff, but at least he's like doing shit. Like, we're seeing the growth. Like, a lot of those people are probably like salty because they're just kind of like, and that's one thing I felt is like, oh, I'm in hip hop and I'm getting hit up by these major labels and shit who want to fuck with me and like famous ass artists and managers who are trying to fuck with me. And I'm like, I felt hella marginalized in BMX for all those years where I just felt like people didn't really want to see me win because I was taking dollars away from the established media outlets, like my shit was taking money away from them. So they didn't want to see me do good. And then I get into hip hop and it's like, oh, everybody wants to fuck with me because I have an opportunity for them to get them out to a fan base or whatever, know?
But even with that, like in terms of saying like marginalized, I know some people have called you out being like, oh, you're white. Like you can't represent the rap community as a white guy.
Right.
What's your response to that? Like, what would you say to people who are trying to call you out like that?
I mean, mostly I just don't care. But then also it's like I'm from like the suburbs essentially, but I've been listening to rap music pretty much since I was like 8 or 9 years old. I feel like I have a lot to say about rap music. I have a lot of like good opinions. I've been paying attention to the culture on a level where I don't know that many people that are capable of talking about the culture on the level that I can. So if somebody wants to tell me that just because I'm white that I can't have an opinion about it, it's just like, okay, suck my dick. I don't fucking care. I'm just like, whatever, bro. Like that means nothing to me. Like I just don't. If you don't like my content, you don't have to pay attention to it. And I mean, I just don't watch it. I just don't care about that. Like that's like, it just feels so stupid that I can't even take that serious. It's like, and then in the real world, it's like, I've met 5 million cool ass black people in this industry, and like essentially never has somebody been like, nah, I'm not trying to have this conversation with you because you're white. Like, I feel like that's some cool shit that people get to say on Twitter. But then in the real world, people tend to actually treat each other like human beings. And it's like, even if you have a crazy opinion about rap, but you're white, it's like people are mostly still going to actually like try to have a conversation. Like that whole thing of like, oh, you fit into this box, so I'm not going to be even willing to talk to you is just so played out. Like, I feel like people at large should be able to tell that wokeness has not got our society where we need to be. We need to be willing to have conversations with people, regardless of if they differ from our perspectives a little bit.
Yeah.
You worried about cancel culture at all?
What about it?
Cancel culture? You worried about it? Censorship?
I mean, in terms of us getting banned or anything, I feel like we play it relatively safe. I mean, you kind of just got to play the game that whatever the social networks are putting out there is. And I mean, the fact that we're still here after all these years and haven't been involved in millions of crazy controversies, to me, that kind of says a lot about the fact that, they could try to cancel you, but if you have a real fan base, it is what it is,
We interrupt the podcast to bring you guys the most important message of your whole entire life, all right? If you want to gamble with the boys, you already know how to do it. We on Bodog, baby. Every single day, every single week. We're actually we're live streaming on Twitch every week. Biggest games, NFL, NHL, footy. You know the drill. You know the fucking drill.
Had our first poker tournament. Didn't go too well. But, the boys are learning. Listen, Bodog, it's all about the crypto, though, all right? If you got some crypto, make sure you withdraw with crypto. No transaction fees, all right? Get the crypto out of the wallet into Bodog and start making some money.
And for all our fellow Canadians, if you sign up, $400 bonus sign up fee. I think you got to match that. So then you got to put 400 to get 400 back.
It's not bad,
But nonetheless, it's free money and you're
Yeah.
gambling anyways. So with that being said, come gamble with the boys. I'm Bodog. Let's get back to this episode.
Did you ever sign a deal with any sort of like record label or anything like that?
Yeah, I signed with Atlantic in I think 2017 or 2018, and I had like a 1-year deal with them, and we put out a couple singles, and we were supposed to sign artists and stuff, but it didn't really go anywhere.
How was that working with them?
It was okay. It was just weird to be a puppet, you know, like
you
kind
gotta
of how
be your
I
own
felt.
guy.
Like I kind of felt like, oh, I'm like the mascot for this shit, because it's like they were just putting records together, and then they would talk to me and like sort of use my connections a little bit, where I would hit up people to be like, hey, do a verse on the song or whatever. But I just didn't really feel like I had that much control. Like they were just going to kind of build something using my likeness and my brand, which it was okay, but it just, I don't know, it wasn't anything I was excited about.
Yeah, and then in terms of the no jumper vision, has it changed since you guys started?
The vision. Well,
The
the
vision
vision,
itself.
the vision in the beginning was literally just interview as many people as I can and
Okay.
just play this game of just interviewing people. And then as time goes by, it's like there's just so many different visions. Like the vision of having a ton of different hosts on the channel, making
Yeah.
a ton of different content. That's one of the visions that we're like accomplishing now at a rate that like, you know, I couldn't have really imagined early on. But then there's also the vision of like, oh, have enough advertisers that you're just making like a fuckload of money off of doing a million different sponsorships on every video. That's a vision that we could definitely get better at. And then there's the vision of just like, I don't know, like all the other ways that we make money. I mean, we like, just to put in perspective, like the value of content is getting so much more year after year. Like when we started, and I'm talking about doing an interview and making $100 off it. Well, now that same interview, we're putting it on TikTok, we're putting it on Instagram Reels, we're putting it on Spotify and podcast services that we make money off of. We're clipping it up to put it on Facebook. We're putting it on, you know, like just a bunch of different platforms where it can live, as well as YouTube, as well as having a clips channel for it. So it's like any given piece of content, any 5 minutes that I sit down with somebody, it's just that content is worth a lot more to us now, and I feel like it's only going to be worth more going forward. So yeah, that's important. I think is just
Yeah.
you gotta
The
lean
vision's
into
money.
everything,
I heard you
vision
mention
is cash.
Facebook, like I think in another podcast as well. Like
and not just money, but just distribution. Like just people seeing
Seeing
it, people
it,
just
yeah,
being
yeah.
exposed to it. Like if you have a TikTok that gets 100,000 views or 1 million views, it's like that doesn't make you any money.
Yeah.
But it gets you visibility, and that's
Yeah. Sure.
really kind of what we're all after.
You,
You know?
You've been on TikTok a lot recently.
You know, I'm going hard on. I'm trying to get to 1 million real quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say what turned you on and
You know what it is really is my girl started doing a daily TikTok vlog, and then I just kind of started seeing her do it and seeing her like learning what worked on the platform and seeing her have a good day where she got 1 million views instead of 50,000, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I've played this game many times before on many different social networks. I know I could do this too. And then you just start making TikToks and seeing what works, and you start, well, if you have the kind of like analytical brain that I have of just like really picking up on like, oh, okay. Like I did one the other day where I had this porn star girl that I was with, and I just said like, I said something about how I was going to go talk to her, and then I talked to her. And so the first clip is just me talking to the camera, and then the next clip is her, and it did like 30,000 views. And then I was thinking about it. It's like, you need to start with the girl. Like I need to show myself and the girl in the intro, because if I just start with me, it's way less intriguing. Like TikTok's all about grabbing them immediately. And it's just all these little things like, oh, you need to put a title on the screen that hooks them in and gets them to actually watch it and shit. And I don't know. I really enjoy that challenge of figuring out the platform, even though there's essentially no money associated with it. But yeah, I've been having fun on there. What were you gonna say about Facebook?
Facebook, you brought it up and you said that like, you know, you're posting your content on there. Like if you asked me, I would have said Facebook's dead, but you're clearly doing well on that.
Yeah, Facebook is, you know, but I mean, like Snapchat is not growing that crazy.
Yeah.
Facebook is like, I think they just saw their first decrease in daily average users in like their entire time, something like that. But Facebook does have a really good monetization platform in terms of their video stuff. And so we just have a guy that I met at one point, and right out the gate, he told me, he's like, I can make you a shitload of money on Facebook. We signed with him. Boom, he's making us 6 figures a month off Facebook.
Jeez.
And that's just like, that's money that I had no fucking clue was out there.
Yeah.
That means that if YouTube decides tomorrow, hey, we're gonna wipe your fucking channel off of the internet, that's money that we could still make.
Yeah.
That just gives me like an additional feeling of freedom, or like, oh fuck, like I'm actually, I'm not just at the whim of any social media company as long as I don't go full sneako on them, I guess.
Yeah. Are you like recycling content on there? Or are you going? It's like with your schedule.
It's just literally anything from our interviews. They just take the best moments. Lots of stuff with the girls talking about being hoes does really good. Yeah.
We gotta get on Facebook.
No, that's crazy.
yeah.
We noticed that too, and
Yeah.
it's like, when we started on Snapchat, that became a new, a way for us to make money. Same thing. So every time
Yeah.
you expand, I hear you because you're like, yo, whatever. You want to take me off YouTube? You want to take me off? Whatever. Like, fuck you guys. Like, I'll still do my thing.
Yeah. And that feels great on Snapchat or on TikTok. Like I remember I did a Bryce Hall interview and it got like 200K, 300K on YouTube, which is like fine, but it's kind of weird just because he's like the biggest TikToker. You'd think it would be a little bit more. And then we probably put up 10 TikToks of him that all got like millions and millions of views and probably got us like over 100, 200,000 more followers on our TikTok just from reposting his fucking interview. So it's like, that felt good because it's like, oh, that means there's like multiple ways that I could benefit from this piece of content doing well. And the more ways that you could benefit, then the more that you really feel like you're creating value when you sit your ass down in front of the camera for an hour,
Yeah, it's true. And in terms of getting the other hosts now under the No Jumper umbrella, what made you want to start that, and how do you go about finding that talent?
Well, to be honest, I've always been trying to do that. Like there was this white dude, Robesman, in the early days of the channel that I did some interviews with. And from the beginning, like the No Jumper show, I had House Phone and Cam Girl, who were my co-hosts. And then the kind of the cast has changed a little bit over time. But I always kind of like saw that vision of like, oh, it's going to help if I have somebody else sitting next to me that I can kind of bounce back and forth with. But it is tough too because a lot of people are really fucking bad on camera. And in particular, like I remember I had one incident where I had this random girl that I was having co-host on podcasts, and she kind of checked the boxes in the sense that she looked good, she was cute, she was successful, she was like pretty well known and everything. People liked, respected her or whatever. And like I'm interviewing this dude with her, and we do this whole hour-long interview. And then I'm clearly ending the interview. I'm landing the plane. I'm like, you know how this feels when you're sort of winding it down, and I'm saying stuff of like the kind of questions you ask at the end of an interview, like, so what do you really want to accomplish over the next couple of years? Or like, so what do you really, what does happiness mean to you at this point in your life? That sort of thing. And it's so obvious that I'm landing the plane. And then she just goes, yeah, so one question I wanted to ask was like, where do you get your ideas for your songs? And I just look over at her with the death eyes and just think like, I cannot do this. Like I can't have a co-host. Like I need somebody who is going to be like, and now I look at it and I'm like, no, it's not that I can't have a co-host. It's just I need to have co-hosts who are on the same page as me and podcasting on a similar level to me. Because if I'm fucking with somebody who's just not on the same level as me or doesn't get it, or is, that's the whole problem, is that people are just hella self-involved. It's like when you're doing a podcast, you need to be sitting there thinking about this person, not yourself. You need to forget about the chores you have to do at your home, your girl, your kid, your other interviews throughout the rest of the day. You just really have to focus on this person. And that's one thing I realized through seeing random people try to do podcasts, is that a lot of them have a really hard time not thinking about themselves for an hour.
Well, I mean, when we started, we were like, this is all about we would probably talk for like 3 to 5 minutes total and just let the guests talk. Like that was the whole point about it. And I get what you're saying. A lot of people started and they're actually nobodies at the start, and they think everybody wants to hear about their life. Yeah. And then it becomes like, oh, like, who are you again? Why are you talking about yourself? Let's get a guest involved.
No one really cares. They want the guest, right?
Yeah.
Like they're there for that reason. And
but then at the same time, if you want to stand out long term, then you have to figure out how to put enough of yourself into it that you stand out, you know, which is, I think, a big challenge these days, where it's like there are a lot of people doing like acceptable YouTube content with people, or like decent content, but like to really be great, like to interview somebody who's done 10 big interviews, and still be able to bring something new to the table. Like, I heard Kyle and them interviewing Mr. Beast the other day, and there was multiple times during it where Kyle would ask a question and Bradley had clearly watched more of his podcast, so he knew that Kyle or whoever was asking questions that had kind of already been answered and would be sort of repetitive. Yeah. And I mean, you can't blame Kyle at all, because obviously he's got a million things going on. It's like you're interviewing Mr. Beast. It's like, it's not like you have to watch every single interview he ever did, and there's nothing wrong with him answering the same question twice. But it was kind of like, if Bradley is super aware of everything he's already talked about, that's going to put him in a better headspace to be able to ask better questions. And it was really forcing me to kind of think in my head, like, knowing that he's talked about all these different things, what would I talk to him about right now, you know? And that's like expert shit, is when you have to interview somebody who's already kind of blown out and you can still get new shit out of him,
That's the
you know?
tough part about it, man. That's the tough part, is like, you have a guy like you're on fucking camera every day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, what can we get you to talk about that you haven't talked about? You know what I mean? That's always the goal. But
even with like getting your audience to get to know you a bit more, that you mentioned that, do you think that, because I think we're coming across that right now, where it's like, okay, we got to get our audience we got to be more personable with our audience. They got to get to know us as well, not just our guest. Do you feel like other pieces of content can help that, maybe like vlogging, or maybe being more active on your socials personally? Like what have you done to kind of break through that barrier?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the crazy thing is that you really just have to put your life out there on social media in every different way. Like, I feel like even with the TikTok thing, even though I'm only at like 150K right now, but I was at like 100K like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's making me feel like this feeling again of like, oh, I'm putting myself out there over and over and over and getting to know a new audience and getting them interested in me and shit. And it's like, if you want to be a person like a public figure, you know, if you want to be fucking Mike Majlak, if you want to be Logan Paul, if you want to be one of these dudes, it's like, you got to just really get used to just putting out as much content as possible, as depressing as that might be. And then you also just have to like pick what's worth your time. Like for me, I just don't have time to like, you know, go on Twitch 4 hours a day, even though I would love to, because I'm doing so many interviews, you know. And it's like, what do you want to do with that energy? And yeah, I feel like in this day and age, like, it might be some TikTok that you do that gets 1 million or 2 views, and a lot of people on the street who talk to you might know you from that TikTok, and they might not really even know anything about your podcast, but then one day they're scrolling through TikTok and they see you again and they're like, oh, he has a podcast, and maybe I'm going to actually go to YouTube and type the name of the podcast in. And it's like, you're fighting so hard to worm your way into people's brains, knowing that there are all kinds of other endearing personalities out there. Like, you know, what does it take to make somebody care about you as much as they care about Mr. Beast, when Mr. Beast is operating on this fucking insane level content wise? I mean, that's like the real challenge these days, is that you just have so many people killing it. How do you stand out? And, you know, even me, I'm still thinking about it all the time. Like right now I'm on this crazy fitness journey, trying to get super in shape and stuff. And that's part of it, is like, damn, maybe that'll be something that I can make content out of. Maybe that'll be something that'll be interesting for me to talk about on camera, or at least it'll just be like one more thing that I can really cross off in my brain to get done before I die, you know?
I saw you post that about working out now.
Oh,
Hard in the
you got
gym.
your gym going on in the garage, eating
Yeah.
healthy. I'm curious, do people from TikTok, like, do they know you as Adam from No Jumper, like ADAM22, or have you noticed there'd be a disconnect from that audience?
I see a lot of that on, like, when I go live on TikTok, where they'll be like, I cannot believe this guy is on TikTok or whatever, you know, just because it's like, I have way more followers on all these other social networks, you know. But then at the same time, I think, okay, on TikTok, like, having a recognizable face is a big part of it, you know, like just people having seen you before. And the thing is that people don't necessarily remember you based on really, really important things, you know. Like a lot of the biggest things that people remember me from is like, oh, this fucking guy ran up on you and put a gun in your face, or oh, like, you know, still people come up to me every day and say, I found out about you from the vlog where you did acid in the woods, because I got 5 million views on a vlog where I did acid in the woods. And, you know, it's just like, building that level of familiarity is just a huge part of it. Yeah. And when you're like on TikTok and people are scrolling through, they're just so much more likely to stop and watch if they recognize you or if they've like seen you before. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that helps a little bit.
How about the Twitch game? I know that you're on Twitch playing poker. We're recently on Twitch.
Yeah.
So we'd love some advice on growing that page and what you think of that platform in general.
Twitch, I'm not like super bullish on Twitch. I really think that YouTube's streaming options are kind of like slowly overtaking Twitch. But I do feel like Twitch has, in the poker world, Twitch has like a real community in the sense that like that's pretty much just where everybody's at. People in the poker world look at the list of who's live and they watch on there and stuff. So I like that part about it. And it's kind of like I could probably get more viewers if I stream poker on the YouTube channel. But I do like Twitch because I can just watch YouTube videos and not worry about getting kicked off the fucking stream, which is a very big reality with with YouTube is that if you listen to copyrighted music or if you watch a fucking YouTube video for more than like 2 minutes, then you're just gonna get flagged and it sucks. And so Twitch, at least currently, lets you not have to deal with that, which is nice. So, but for me, poker is different because it's like, okay, on TikTok, obviously the point is just to be as big as possible, but then on TikTok or on Twitch, it's like I'm playing poker. Yesterday, I had like 300 viewers all day. By the end, I had like 800, so I'm kind of feeling myself. But throughout the whole day, I got 400 new followers.
Nice.
I know it's not huge.
That's nice.
I
That's
love
good.
poker. Like, I love it. Yeah, but like, you know, if I sat here, like literally, if I was just like Sunday, instead of playing poker, I'm going to sit in here with the two homies, and we're going to do an 8-hour stream of us just talking. We probably have like 10,000 people watching instead of like 300, you know?
Yeah.
But I just love playing
But it's
poker.
the poker. Yeah.
And it's a different way for people to get to know you too.
And it's like, I need to challenge myself. Like, that's a weird thing about my personality is like, on one hand, as far as podcasting, I've just completely buried my head in the sand. I'm just going, doing 5 million fucking pieces of content. But then I also have to have something like TikTok that I'm kind of new at. And I have to have something like Twitch that is like a real challenge, or like poker where I was trash a couple of years ago and I've gotten so much better, and I just fucking love the feeling of improving at something. And sometimes doing podcasts, it's like I know I'm good at it and I know I can crank out volume and do a lot of them, but sometimes it just feels like, oh, I could do like 5,000 more good podcasts, and I might still be in the same place in life that I'm at right now, aside from having more money and I guess more fame.
I was gonna ask.
There's more room to grow on these other platforms.
Yeah, even if like the top echelon level, but I also feel like I'm not in control of what I get into, because with poker, it's like I kind of know that if I just played Fortnite or like whatever shoot 'em up games that people play, that if I played Minecraft.
Oh man.
And dude, I know I could get into Minecraft. I know I'm not like all these other people who love it. I know I could be somebody who loved it. I played it for like a couple hours total in my life, but I just love poker, so I have to do it. Even though I know I could probably force myself to do something that would get more viewers, but it's like at the end of the day, I mean, I just feel like in life you got to chase after the shit that you're motivated about, you know?
Yo, bro,
Yo, what are we doing here?
we gotta get to work.
Oh man, are you guys ever tired of being tired? Are you ever so tired of being tired that you can't even work out? And this is something that's been happening to me a lot lately. Wake up and I don't have the energy to get to the gym. But as usual, I got the solution for y'all. We got the pre, okay? Full scent pre. This is peach sunrise. Oh, tastes amazing. All right? You get to supplements.co, all right? Get the pre. When you wake up in the morning, take a little scoop, boom, have some water, and in half an hour, you're gonna be Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know what I'm talking about. Supplements.co, use MBH15 for 15% off. MBH15, 15% off. Get yourself some pre, no more excuses. Back to the episode.
But you mentioned like wanting to be great at like everything you do.
Yeah.
At this point in time, like how the fuck do you get better at podcasting? Like, is there anything you do specifically? I mean, other than like, you know, you mentioned you watch the Full Scent podcast with Mr. Beast. Obviously, watching other podcasts, but like, is there anything you focus on to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to be better in a year from now at podcasting? Because you've been doing it so long. Like, how do you keep growing?
So it's little things like, watching more podcasts and not just listening to what they're saying, but listening to how they're saying it. And that's why when I say something about like kind of making fun of Kyle and Bradley because he like picked out something that he had already been discussed on a podcast or whatever, is because I'm trying to notice these little things. You know, I'm trying to like pick up on the dynamic. I'm trying to pick up when somebody's offended or when somebody's flustered or when somebody doesn't know what to say in response to a question. Sometimes I'll be listening to a podcast and I'll see how someone gets to a point in the conversation where they don't know what to say and they change the subject. And I'll pause the podcast and I'll sit there in silence in my car and just think, okay, if that was you, what would you say?
Yeah.
Like, what would you say? Well, there's got to be something that you could have said there that would have added to the conversation. Like, how do you make this conversation deeper? You know, like if I had, and how do you make the conversation deeper in a way that doesn't alienate people? Because in some sense, I feel like I could get smarter and it would make the podcast worse. Like, I feel like if I had like a history degree and I was just always like, well, this reminds me of Napoleon and like it's just not like gonna really do anything for the average person. So like, I don't know. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and then when I go in to interview somebody, I try to like be more prepared or like have more good shit written down. But then also part of it is I just want to be as chill as possible. I want to be able to do a 12-hour day of podcasting and never at any point in that 12 hours feel like I'm stressed out or like I'm bothered or like this is a burden or anything. I want to be able to be like one of those dudes who can go meditate on the side of a fucking mountain for like 6 months and just hold it down. And like, I want to be able to like, because when I really think about it, on these days where I'm doing like 10 hours of podcasting, it's like, is it really that bad? Like, it's actually pretty good. It's like fucking, it's just like, it's like I'm just talking to people for hours and hours and hours, and it kind of feels exhausting at a certain point. But if you go into it with the right attitude, it doesn't feel exhausting. It just feels like you're talking.
You can go for a
How
while.
much research are you doing like for each guest?
See, it really depends because it's like, I have 3 interviews today, and one of them is this person who talks so much that I didn't even bother. I know like 3 things about them, and I know they're going to tell me everything about themselves. And I also know that I can't really Google them or whatever. I don't think I'm going to find that much if I Google them. So I have like 5 things that I already know, and I spent no time getting ready for it, and I'm sure that's going to be a good one. And then the other one, I probably spent maybe a half hour on YouTube looking up videos of this guy, like, figuring out different people he had been involved in and different times he'd been in the news and different controversies he'd been involved in and stuff, just so I won't miss anything like that. You don't want to like interview somebody and then just give them a walk on all this interesting shit that they've been a part of or whatever. And then the other interview is an author, and I had to read a whole fucking book.
Yeah.
So I probably spent like
crazy,
7 or 8 hours reading like a 400-page book to get ready to interview this dude. But I kind of just like, as soon as I saw him in my calendar, I was just like, okay, I'm reading the whole book. I know I could do this interview without reading the whole book. I could probably read like a quarter of it and still like get the general idea and like do a good interview. But I'm like, no, I want to read the whole thing. I just want to be able to like really have a good conversation with him. So I kind of need to know how he wraps this thing up and everything,
Are you booking all the guests? Because you just said like, I see him in my calendar. Are you like setting them up, or does your team also be like, yo, Adam, I think this guy would be good for you. This girl would be good for you.
Yeah, I don't really book any of them. I will DM people or they DM me, and then people email me or I email them, and then also my producer or my publicist Laura, she gets ones for me. She'll hit me up and say, do you want to interview this dude? And then I just send her everybody that sometimes I'll just sit on YouTube and I'll watch random interviews or I'll watch random music videos or whatever, and I just say, oh, this guy seems like he's popping off. Like, I'm gonna holler at him on Instagram, get his email, boom, send it to Laura. She lines it up. I'm doing it 2 weeks later, and that's the only way that I'm able to do like such a crazy amount. Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone like deny the offer?
Oh yeah, of course,
Yeah?
all the time.
That's crazy.
Anyone you can say?
Everybody fucking. I mean, just in the sense of like, I asked Lil Uzi to do it, and he said some fucking weird ass shit about going to the moon or something. I don't know. Like, it's just like, the people you really want to do it are not going to do it, or they're going to be difficult about doing it.
Yeah,
And it's
to get it
like,
done.
but there's a lot of people that you could get to do it that are still pretty dope, and that's what it is. It's like you got to constantly be trying to do the ones that you can do. Get the underground people, get the people that are kind of on the edge that might be huge, whatever. But then at the same time, you got to hunt for those big ones too,
Would you say the X interview is the one that really put No Jumper on the map?
100%. I
Yeah.
did a lot of like good SoundCloud rappers and stuff around that time. I had a lot of good interviews, but it's like people just, you know what it is like podcasting is like being a musician where, you say like, there's a lot of rappers that you look at as successful, or like, oh, Travis Scott, Astroworld's like the biggest album of like the last 10 years or one of the biggest albums. And it's like, fucking Sicko Mode is like 70% of the plays off of that album. It's like your really big hits are gonna just mean so much more than all the ones that just did whatever or did okay or whatever, and it's like the X one was just the biggest hit ever. Like I think it has more views than every other hip hop interview besides maybe 6ix9ine and Soulja Boy on Breakfast Club. I think those might have done a little bit more. But sometimes I talk to people about podcasting and they're like, like, how did you realize how big this shit could possibly be? And I'm like, I did one of the top 3 or top 1, I don't even know. I did basically one of or the biggest interview in YouTube history in hip hop in my first year of doing interviews.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. I don't know how it happened. He was a fucking nobody when I interviewed him. He had like one song popping off. I thought he seemed tight. I'm watching the documentary about him after the fact, and I realized that his friends were all commenting on No Jumper, telling me to interview him.
Damn.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
so they were doing media misinformation bullshit, like trying to fucking trick me into doing this interview, you know? And I fell for it, and I did the interview, and it was fucking the biggest classic ever because fucking Tank God is in the comments tricking me into thinking that there's a huge demand for this interview. But then when I started to look into it, I actually thought he was dope, so I went for it, you know?
Okay.
But I don't know. It's like that's why I'm so determined to take so many shots interview-wise, and why I don't mind doing an interview that doesn't really blow up. Even just in recent memory, like my dude Black Dave in New York, he fucking interviews people for us, a lot of like up and coming drill artists and shit like that. And he did one with Ice Spice when she was nobody.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, she's like the biggest talk of the town. The interview's views honestly didn't really go that crazy, but I mean stuff like that of just getting people early and taking shots on people who end up being a big deal is, I don't know, it's a very addictive feeling.
Yeah, even going back to it, like banking episodes, I think that's something we've learned recently as well. Just get as many episodes as you can under your belt. You mentioned you had 3 today. Like, how are you timing that out?
I mean,
Like in terms of like the releasing of the episodes.
I like to drop one a day,
Okay.
Monday through Friday, and then if I have a ton built up, I'll do Monday through Sunday, and then if I can't do as many, if I'm traveling or whatever, then I'll try to like just put out like I just spread them out throughout the week or whatever, like put them out Monday and Wednesday if I only have 2 for that week, and I don't mind only dropping 2 for a week. It is what it is. Like as long as I'm dropping 1 or 2 a week, I feel like that's okay. But the weeks where I drop 7, I mean, it's a great feeling. And my whole thing is like, yeah, banking interviews for me is like the best feeling. Like I literally,
It's a fact.
this month or like, all right, this week, if I could, I would do, if it was this easy, I would do 5 interviews Monday through Friday and then take the rest of the month off.
Nice.
Like that would be the shit.
We kind of roll that way, to be honest. I think last
would do it if I could.
Yeah, last 10 days, I think we've hit 5 or 6.
No,
Yeah.
that's-
We do
as a
like, but we're
podcaster,
going
you
one. We're
realize
going
that.
one a week, right? We're not going every day.
Right,
but
right. I mean, I did 1 a week until I got to the point where it was just like, fuck, I gotta start dropping these all the time. Yeah.
What moment was that when you just started dropping them like crazy?
Just when I started grinding it out. Like when I was on Melrose, like I used to think it was a big deal to do 2 in a night when I was downtown. And then all of a sudden I'm on Melrose and it's like, I've got 3 on the schedule. And then I'm just hanging out in front of the store and a dude will walk by like a rapper and we start talking for 5 minutes. And I'm like, you should do the podcast. And he's like, I fly out tomorrow. And I'm like, you should do the podcast right now. And he's like, you ready? I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. And he's like, all right, bet, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go take a shit. And I go in the bathroom and I just like I'm on my phone feverishly writing questions. I'm listening to his fucking music. I'm watching his music videos with the volume turned down so he won't think I'm like fucking like so he won't hear me in the bathroom and shit. And that's when I got like really crazy with it. And then also it was like, oh, I just busted out 4 interviews in a day. Oh, it's 8 p.m. Fuck it. I'm going with my filmer to this concert and we're going to make a vlog going to this rapper's concert. And we might go back to their mansion and kick it till 3 o'clock in the morning because I just, and it's crazy because like when I was saying all that, it sounds like a young man's energy, but I was actually like 32 or something, like 33.
How the fuck did you like even keep that rolling? Like,
I
insane.
had been treading water in the BMX shit for 10 years. And then as soon as I got these opportunities, I was just like, I am not turning down anything. I'm doing everything I could possibly do. I'm going to fight for every last droplet of clout now that I finally have my fucking foot in the door.
Yeah. But like, do you ever feel mentally drained from doing that many pods in one day?
Yes, but it's like, it's not
whatever.
that bad.
It's not
like,
that bad.
Yeah, if I do 5 1-hour podcasts, that doesn't even sound that bad to me. That's like
Yeah.
fucking, I mean, the problem is that a lot of times I'll go for like a couple hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, then I'm in the office for 12 fucking hours and it's just like, this is ridiculous. But for the most part, if I can get done doing pods by like 8 or 9, I go home, I sit on the couch, I smoke a fucking spliff, I watch TV for a couple hours, I go to sleep, I work out, I eat. It's like the next morning, it's like, I'm ready. Like, give me 5 more. I have no fucking qualms about that. Like, I'm down. Like, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of things that I couldn't do for 8 hours a day. You know, like I work out, and sometimes I'll try to work out for like 3 or 4 hours in a day, and that just sucks. It's like really like law of diminishing returns. Like it just starts to like really not be good by the end of it. But with podcasting, I just feel like I got so much energy. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of the podcast space in general? Like, where do you think it's going? And do you think if someone wanted to start a pod like today, do you think they're late to the party, or they can get it going?
I think the thing is that if you want to start a podcast these days, you just have to find a focus. That's like the biggest thing that I could give somebody is like, you need to find something that you could drill into and do a really good job on. Cause that's what I did with like underground rap. You know, I just like really did a good job at that when nobody was doing that. And sometimes I look at people and you see them just kind of like, I don't know, there's no focus. There's no like brand, you know, like the best thing that somebody could say about your podcast is like, oh, they do this. Even if like with No Genre, people say like, oh, they interview all the underground rappers. The reality is today I'm interviewing a fucking hairstylist, an author, and a fucking chick who owns like a weed company, basically, who used to be married to a famous rap personality. So it's like in reality, that's not a great description for the podcast. That might be like 15 or 20% of the content. But because we branded ourselves as that, it just creates like a uniqueness to it. And like, then I also think our other brand is like, oh, we fucking have all these hosts and you get to see them interact with each other and there's all this tomfoolery between them or whatever. So I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like when you first start podcasting, you just want to have these conversations because it's like, you're not trying to figure out how to be better than Joe Rogan or fucking whoever like is a goat in the space. You're not trying to figure out how to be better than them. You just are thinking like, damn, like, I just interviewed the same dude as Joe Rogan. That's tight. Like I just interviewed the same dude as ADAM22. That's sick. And then as time goes by, you start to feel like for me at least, like, no, I consider myself kind of like maybe not on the level of a Joe Rogan, but I at least want to like treat my content as if I'm, if Joe Rogan just interviewed somebody, I don't want to go and interview them and ask them all the same exact questions because that's corny to me. That's like I'm just running behind him, and like. Once you start to try to think of yourself as like really being a player in the space, you hold yourself to a different standard, I guess. But that's what I think is important is that if you want to be a popular podcaster, you have to hold yourself to a high standard,
So you're saying like podcasters should start with like a niche. And then when they get to a certain level, maybe they can branch out and start getting other kind of guests.
I think it's useful too. Like when I look at Graham Stephan, who just had me on his podcast, it's like he focuses on money and how much what does your business look like? Tell me everything about your business and how you manage this, and he'll get kind of technical, but then he goes and he interviews the Liver King and he interviews me and like people who are not really like necessarily like important people in the financial space or whatever, but he has like a something to hang his hat on. Like he has the thing that makes his podcast stand out, and it helps him make sense of everything that he does. Or I listen to Tim Ferriss, and he gravitates away from this, but he does a lot of stuff where he's like, tell me about your daily routine. Tell me about exactly how you do things, and that to me is that's good. That helps.
That's the way to get it going.
Yeah, I think you just need to like figure out something to help brand your shit.
I'm curious, like. Just going back a bit, obviously with all the shit you're doing, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours here a day, working with the team, content in and out all the time. Obviously you have a family now, a little girl. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats, bro.
How the fuck do you keep up with a family and literally being, in front of a camera 24/7 and then also having to think about what's next and what you did and looking back at other shit and looking forward and running the team? Like how do you keep it going? With a family.
It's tough because it just feels like you are wearing so many different hats and you have to switch between different hats all the time, where it's like I have to be the interviewer guy, then I have to be able to go out and host a vlog and be like lighthearted and funny and free and just having a good time, and then I have to be able to like switch into TikTok mode. All of a sudden I'm a dancer. No, I don't do that many dances on there, but like like just doing a bunch of whatever, and then I have to go do my email. Like even after this, it's like I have like 2 hours before my next podcast, and it's like I'm gonna have to sit down and go in my email and write titles for all the content that we've done over the past couple of weeks, or past week, or however many things they sent me, and I have to make a bunch of different decisions, and then I have to turn into like business guy who has to like read one email where it's like maybe we want to do this business deal with this company, or maybe we should do this ad deal with this company, and like we really need your opinion on this. And it's like, I just spent 6 hours interviewing people. Like, I just exhausted the fuck out of my decision making capabilities, and then I have to just like quickly switch into this different mode and then switch back. And I find that kind of exhausting. But when I have like 5 podcasts in a row and I just get to stay in one frame of mind, that I somehow find to be a little bit more, I don't know.
Then at what point do you get to go home and be dad, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the night when I go home, see, that is the problem, is that it's like I wake up to my kid and then I get to hang out with her for a couple hours. I work out in the morning, I eat breakfast, I'm hanging out with her while I eat breakfast. Sometimes she comes and hangs out in the gym and everything. So I get to be around her for a couple hours in the morning, which I'm grateful for, because I usually don't have to leave the house until like 10 or 11. And then some days I just, really hustle. Like nowadays it's different, because if I get done doing a podcast at 5:30 or 6 and she's going to bed at 7:30, I'm just out the door. Boom. I like got to get home so I can spend a half hour, an hour with her before she goes to bed. Whereas back in the day, and even right now, because my girl and my kid are in Europe right now, it's like I get done at the end of the day and it's like I don't really care about going home, because it's like, and that's how I was in the store for all those years. I was in the store till midnight, working every night, streaming, doing anything I could to make money, fucking doing anything I could to make content, just fighting, just trying to like I just wanted to be a millionaire so bad that I was just gonna fight every fucking second of the day to make myself have a fucking $1 million in the bank. And then, I still got that fucking itch, even though I'm, more established now.
I wanna talk about you being a dad as well.
Yeah.
How has that changed like the way you move or your mindset?
Well, I take Saturday and Sunday off. And I forgot to say this before. I take Saturday and Sunday off. And that's like really like the biggest thing, is I used to be working every weekend. And now I don't even know, like, I'll probably need a different team for the weekend. I feel like it would be kind of fucked up to make the whole team work all weekend too. When they, I want to encourage them to have families and relationships and everything like that. If you have to work Saturday and Sunday too, and you never take a day off, that sounds kind of crazy, but that's what I was doing for a long time. But in terms of how I treat myself, yeah, it definitely just makes me take my life a lot more serious, in the sense that I don't really want to be going to crazy clubs and bars and doing, spending all this time outside and stuff, where it's like, when you're young, it's like the fact that it's risky and that there's possibility seems so exciting. And then you get older and it's like, oh, the fact that anything could happen to me seems like a very bad thing, when I have something to lose and I could just easily just, have something bad happen right now. But then at the same time, I mean, like, that's kind of how I am when I'm in LA. When I travel, like when I'm just in New York, we're running around fucking free as birds, just hanging out, ain't shit, In LA, I don't know what it is. In LA, I feel like I need a fucking security guy or a guy with a gun with me at all times when I'm like out alone and stuff. And then when I'm in New York, I'm just posted up outside the fucking corner store, just like whatever. Although I guess I had security last time I was in New York too, so I'm full of shit. But I mean, I don't know. I just feel so like when I'm traveling, everything feels so different. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, having a kid makes me want to like really make sure that I like do everything I can to protect against bad outcomes.
Was
really.
that always a part of the plan? Family, kid? Or were you just not even thinking about it and it kind of just happened?
Never thought about it once. I spent my whole life avoiding having children. I'm proud to say that I think my pull-out game is pretty miraculous. I could pull out any time of day, eyes closed. I have amazing accuracy with my pulling out, which really kind of fucked with me at one point, because I was drinking this energy drink that it was starting to fuck me up. It was making me pre-cum. And
what's the energy drink? We got to make sure.
I'm not going to shout him out. I don't want to get sued or anything, but
just got to make sure the guys don't drink it.
Well, I Googled it, and I saw a study that said that when you give energy drinks to rats, it fucks with their sperm concentration. Nice. So I actually think that this might be a real thing. Wow. But I stopped drinking it, and I stopped having the problem. I could drink it again and see if it happens again, because if I drank it for a week and then it started happening again, then I'm going to 100% know
then you
it's
know
a thing.
For sure, yeah.
So you spent your whole time avoiding it. How does it come to be? How did you and Lena meet? How did it all go down?
I think we just like, when I met her, we were partying and hooking up with random girls and staying up all goddamn night and doing all this crazy shit. And then at a certain point, we bought a house. All of a sudden, we're watching a lot of Netflix. We're just kind of posted up on the couch. We're looking at my my brother-in-law Josh's kids, and we're just thinking, oh my God, like, like this could be great. Like we could do this. We're already at the point where we're like watching like 6 hours of Netflix every night when I come home from work. Like maybe we could just sort of have a kid and like put some effort into that. I don't know. All
Just make that happen.
it just started to seem like a viable option, and it seemed like it made sense for where my life was at, in the sense that like when I was out partying and really hustling and clout chasing all those years, going and vlogging every night and doing all this goddamn shit, like it would have been really hard. Like I don't think I could live that life now. And even the people I know who are on tour all the fucking time and comedians, whatever, it's like they got kids and they got to go on tour for a month to just make some money so like that they could, you know, continue to pay for their life. I mean, I respect the fuck out of it, but I'm very, very thankful that I don't have to do that at this point, because it would kill me to have to just leave my kid for months at a time to just go get bread.
Are you ever scared of the content that you put out? Thinking that you have a kid? In terms of like, I mean, we'll start with the
Porn.
no jumper stuff. We can go to the porn stuff after.
We can do the plug talk
no,
stuff.
but even with it, just like, you know, whatever the content you've done in the past, the content you're going to continue creating. You know what I mean? Like, are you? Do you ever think about that, or are you just like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck?
I think about it, but it's also like, you know, this is grown folk shit. You know, it's like my kid's just gonna have to understand like grown folks do different types of shit, and like, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's like ideally you keep them away from it for a long time, but then at a certain point, it's like, because I think about it every day, because I'm driving to work listening to Pooh Shiesty and it's just like thinking about how I would explain the lyrics to a kid, or it's like, why does dad need to have a guy with a gun with him? Why does dad have a gun? Why does dad have weed? Why is dad going outside to smoke? Why is, you know, you just think about all these things through the perspective of a kid's eyes. Why is dad posting pictures with all these girls on Instagram? You know, like shit like that. And it's like, you know, there will be many, many reality checks throughout her life.
Sure.
My kid will have one additional layer of reality check. You know, it's like every kid gets kind of bummed out, I think, when they realize that their parents been fucking. My kid's just going to have to realize that they were not only fucking, but they were putting it on the internet. But I mean, I don't know. If she can't deal with that, then you weren't meant for this world. You know, that's like, that's easy shit.
What if she wants to follow in your footsteps?
I mean, when she's an adult, it wouldn't be my business. You know, obviously, like, I think your job as a parent is to just kind of like focus on education and focus on teaching your kids to like have as many opportunities available to them as they want. And, you know, then at the same time, I kind of can't not think about the fact that I know a lot of girls who like show their boobs on OnlyFans and make like 20 grand a month. Mm-hmm. And that then, you know, when you think about that, it might be kind of hard to convince your kid to go to school for 8 hours or 8 years to be a lawyer.
Yep.
You know, like that might be kind of hard, like to convince your kid that like, hey, you're going to make way less money than what's her name who's taking topless selfies or whatever. Like, I mean, I think I'm not even worried about porn. I think that in general, it's like, how is my kid not going to become a fucking social media zombie? Like, how do you keep her brain from being attuned to like get all of her ideas of what's cool and what's admirable and everything? Like, how do you train her to not get that from social media when realistically she lives in the social media age where all this stuff is going to get even more important?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's something that I think about that way more. I don't really think about like, oh, one day she's going to want to have an OnlyFans. I mean, listen, if she fucking ends up being that kind of person, so be it. Like, you know, my only goal is to like teach her as much as possible and give her as many opportunities as possible that she'll feel like she has all these other things that she might want to sink her creative juices into, you know?
Yeah.
I want to talk about Plug Talk, but more as a business.
Yeah.
When you guys started, was it strictly dollar signs at the beginning? Like, was that the thought, right? Because when we talk about No Jumper, it was very passion. Like, it started, the foundation was passion. For Plug Talk, was it similar?
It was weird because it's like it was a business where we knew it was going to make a significant amount of money out the gate. Like I remember getting ready to do it and saying, if this makes 100 grand a month, it's a failure.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Okay, how much are you making a month?
A lot more than that. So,
Jeez.
but I just remember saying that like to her, like it was a
insane.
weird feeling of starting a business and realizing that. And realistically, our costs were going to be like less than 10 grand a month. So it's like, you know, no matter what, it was going to be 90% profit and we were going to, you know, make a lot out the gate. But yeah, it was just a decision of like, this is a good idea that we had. I think that it's going to make money. I think that it's got potential. I think that there's an overall brand that we could build under it, under the Plug Talk thing. You know, and just do different types of content. And we've had a bunch of little success stories in that regards in terms of managing different girls. Like Sky Breeze, obviously our biggest knockout smash in terms of like a girl that we found and started
Killer.
managing.
We got some questions on that one. Yeah.
Killer.
Yeah, and you know, then we've done podcasts where like her and this other girl we managed, Raw Rod Nups, they like interviewed some male porn star, Air Thugger, together, and then they banged him and stuff. So like we fucking have just kind of been leaning into doing more content in that world of sort of merging like social media type content with porn, really.
How did that concept come about though?
Because okay, at one point, you know Vitaly?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Vitaly had been trying to convince me to do a site with the people who did his site, which I don't even.
Uncensored?
Yeah,
Uncensored
Vitaly
thing?
Uncensored, where it's basically he was doing a bunch of pranks and then like people's boobs were getting dumped out at some point or something dumb like that. I don't know. I never really seen it, but he was trying to convince me to do it. He puts me in touch with the companies who he was doing it with. And I did a couple of different phone meetings, hearing out their vision. And their vision is basically kind of like, oh, like, we want you guys to do no jumper interviews, but the girls are going to get naked and shit. And me and Leonard are talking about it. And I'm like, listen, we could do that. And we actually do that on the No Jumper Patreon. But what if we do one where we actually have sex with them? What if we have like a threesome at the end of it every time? And they weren't really loving that vision. Not that they probably would have done it for sure. But then they just thought like we didn't have to go that extreme with it. But to me, it's like, I want to do that. Like anything else is just going to be me getting fucking blue balls if I got to be watching girls dump their tits out and I don't get to get it in. Why don't we just go the whole way with it? And so we decided, yeah, we're going to go the whole way with it. We did it. And it's been fucking dope, honestly. Like, I mean, and we realized at a certain point that we didn't have to have some company take it 30%. So we just did it on our own and put it on OnlyFans. And we're building the site right now. So we'll be able to have like our own hub for all of our content in that regard. But it's definitely the kind of thing where I feel like I just have a lot of ideas and I think that I can make some dope stuff in the adult world, you know?
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you.
I got some audience questions though. I want to go
Pull
through.
them up. Pull
Sure.
them up. Yeah, I got some too, actually. No, that's crazy, man. I think it's like that whole world, even with OnlyFans, is pretty like. I think it's still new. I think there's still a ton of growth there, right? Because you just really had like the big players before. I mean, I know you have the space a lot better, but people are just going on like random porn sites, right?
Right.
OnlyFans comes along, and now these like everyday girls, like we've interviewed a couple OnlyFans girls. One girl, 20 years old, $20 million in a year, and you're just like, holy fuck, like this is insane,
that?
right?
No, that was 10 million in about a year and a half. That was Katie Sigmund.
I don't even know her.
Yeah, she's massive.
She's a porn girl or just like...
No, dude.
No,
like
she's
a
just posting fucking
20
bikini
years
pics.
old, just like bikini pics, maybe a couple topless.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. That's what I said, bro.
She sounds hot.
Yeah,
I could assume. Yeah.
Shout out Katie. All right, we got one question from my boy Jibbies. What is your most memorable interview?
Well, the X one definitely, just on a personal level, just because he became somebody I was really close with. Where I saw his career go was so insane, and then to see him get killed that quickly, I mean, that was a tough one. But then there's a lot of other people I'd put in that category too, whether it's like, Mo3 or Draco or FBG Cash or King Von, all these dudes who I interviewed who like lost their lives afterwards. Like, I feel like it's not until they're gone that you really realize how important the shit is, like somehow them being gone just like makes the interview just feel a lot more important. Like to see an interview become a document for people who want to understand them. The X one's the most extreme example of that, but then there's all these other ones too that kind of had similar effects on me.
It's sad that you gotta like you appreciate someone more when they're gone, So
Yeah.
I agree.
I got one here. Obviously, we're from Toronto. Everyone wants to know about Chromaz. How was she? How was the interview?
They call her what did they call her?
She's the
Toronto's first lady. I mean, I don't call her that, but
She's so hot. She has the biggest tits. I still look on her on Instagram, and she just looks so good. But she doesn't want to show her nipples for whatever reason. We did the tit fuck scene, and then we were trying to schedule more stuff. She was supposed to do plug talk, but then she's being weird. She's like, she want to do a foot job.
what?
She doesn't want to get fucked. She wants to do a
fucked.
foot job.
No fucking, eh?
I mean,
supposed to
and
work-
it's because it's like, oh, she thinks her music career will do bad if she gets dick down on camera. It's
Probably
like,
do better, no?
the foot job is the same fucking thing, right? Like, what the fuck? I don't know.
This question's from my boy Pape. He wants to know your take on the Toronto rap scene and the biggest differences from the American scene.
Shoot some artists because I don't know what the fuck's going on out there these days.
Smiley.
Drake.
Yeah,
Drizzy,
Smiley's dope. Yeah, Drake. I've heard of Drake. Yeah, he's good.
He's
The
a mean
Weeknd.
guy.
Nav.
Yeah, Nav.
I mean, those are all bigger guys.
Roy Woods.
Yeah, we had Roy on
I had
recently.
Roy on a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You had him early.
Yeah.
Is there any, even the Canadian market, I think in general, is there any like key differences that stand out? You think it's easier to make it here?
It seems pretty similar in that you have all these like sort of drill rappers popping off talking about shooting each other. Shout out my boy Pressa.
Yeah,
And
there you go.
then,
Press is a big one.
And then you got, more like, you have a weekend or you have like people are making more like artistic, experimental type stuff. Not to take anything away from Pressa, obviously. He just like comes from that kind of background, but like, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't seem that different. I feel like people are a lot more down to hear a Canadian rapper these days in the sense that like when Drake was coming out, it was almost like, oh, I can't believe we're listening to a Canadian rapper. This is so crazy. Like, why we're so crazy and random that we're listening to this Canadian guy. And it's like now, at least it doesn't feel like that anymore.
Yeah,
That's
Drake
a good
put
thing,
everyone on, I think.
Have you ever tried to get Drake on? Would you have him on?
Yeah, I met him one time, DM'd him a bunch of times. We've had some conversations, but I don't know. He's only done one podcast in like the last fucking 5 years or something
he
like
did
that.
Rap Radar.
Rap Radar, yeah, and he put it on his channel.
Yeah, and a lot of people said they thought it was scripted. He knew what the questions were going to be. I mean, he's so big that you got to kind of like.
I don't think it was scripted, but I think that his team edited it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to take out whatever they wanted. I noticed a bunch of little funky cuts
Yep.
where I was like, oh, they took something out right there or whatever. But Drake has a funny tell where as soon as he doesn't really like the conversation, he starts to just like look at the ceiling while he's talking about it. And it's like, it's mad funny. Like literally in that interview, like every time he starts looking at the ceiling is when he doesn't really like the conversation that much.
Yeah.
And he's
Like where it's
kind
going. Yeah,
of
yeah.
trying to kind of get through it. It's like, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody as famous as him who had that obvious of a tell.
Yeah, it's facts. And the fact that he hasn't done like anything like that always makes me trip out. Like
But
kinda
he
sketchy,
kind of used to do a fair
lot
amount
more.
of media.
Yeah, a lot more. But I mean,
He's just slowed down a ton. I mean, there's nothing to gain for him from it for him.
that's
He
true.
does like, I would do what he's doing. I would do an interview every 4 years, every 3 years, and he has done more too. The shop. He's been on some other shit, but
Yeah.
very
but-
selective.
yeah, really big. Like I mean, like LeBron
Or
and
someone
stuff.
wants to know how many girls you've fucked in one day.
In a day,
Yeah.
I guess like 4 maybe, but
Like separately?
back when I was like single, like not porn, I definitely used to have a bad habit where I would like have a girl sleep over, wake up in the morning, bang her again, send her on her way, go grind all day, go home, call one girl over, make up something about how I have something else to do afterwards, bang her, and then have another girl come over and then bang her as well with the same dirty ass dick. And that's disgusting, honestly. And I feel ashamed that I was living like that, but I thought it was hot, like that I was just kind of being sneaky and just. Like,
I think it's a good experience, though, to be honest.
yeah, it was cool.
It must have
I did
been.
it. But then, like the hottest thing I think I ever filmed was I went to Miami and I was hanging out with Riley Reid, Gina Valentina, this girl Abby, and
Those
my
are goats.
girl.
Those are goats.
Yeah, and we went to Club Live on for New Year's, and we were all taking Molly and doing coke and shit, I think. And I think Riley at the time like wanted to hang out with Logan Paul, and then he like didn't call her back, and so it's like I had just all the girls with me to myself, and then we just went home and had like the sickest orgy, and I just banging all of them on the floor in the kitchen for like hours, and I still have a 5-minute video of it on my phone.
I was gonna say, did you film it? Like,
Yeah, it's on Pornhub and shit too, I think, but that was definitely probably the illest experience I had, just like off the Molly, just getting it in on New Year's Eve until 6 a.m.
off the Molly will have you pumping for a hot minute.
But I think that was actually the last time I ever did drugs.
really,
Yeah, I think I
Oh.
never did it after that.
No
You
more
think?
drugs?
It wasn't like on purpose. If I did get fucked up again after that, it was like one time, but I don't think I did. I think it was just that.
You do shrooms or anything?
Once in a while, I'll take some like chocolates or whatever if people are fucking with it, but it's not like my favorite thing.
not the go-to.
Yeah.
Are you ever afraid for your life being associated with all these rappers?
Nah,
Nah.
not really.
No?
That's a good point because I mean I know you've had the Six Buzz guys here before.
Yeah.
And like they're always very like they don't want to be on camera, they don't want to be associated. And I mean I kind of understood it, but I also didn't at the same time. Like if you're being a non-biased channel for news, what's the idea behind that?
I mean, but they could be like extorted, or they could have somebody like trying to do some weird shit of like, trying to force them to do something. I can understand the concern. My whole thing is like, I have people around me that have enough respect that if somebody were to try to do something to me, then they know that they are going to have to deal with some shit. And that's important to me. I have security here all day, every day. I myself personally am protecting myself / I have security when I go places, when I have to be around certain situations. So, and then also I just handle myself on the podcast. Like, I don't say anything I'm not willing to back up. And I don't like pick fights with fucking tough guys that I don't want beef with. You know, like if I were to really not want issues with somebody, I would just not talk about them probably. And so I think you just got to be smart. And then at the same time, I also feel like, you know, there's not that many rappers who I interview that are even factors, you know, like that would even anyone would ever think in a million years that they would ever do anything violent to anybody. So it's like a small percentage of the people I interview could be a factor. And then most of them, it's like, I feel like I'm capable of dealing with them in ways that doesn't get me wrapped up in their bullshit or anything, you know?
You mentioned you were grinding to your first milli, like trying to grind and get that. When did you get it, and what did you do when you got it?
I have no idea when I first got it, really, to be honest, and definitely didn't do anything when I got it. But I just like, I don't know. It was like, basically, like I was making a lot of money when first No Jumper starts and everything. All of a sudden, I'm doing really good. I get up to like $50,000 a month off of analytics on just AdSense on YouTube. Then the ad apocalypse hits, boom, it turns into $5,000 a month, right? Then all of a sudden, I realize I can just go on live stream and listen to people's music, and I can get them to pay me like serious money, like $100 a song to play their fucking songs on stream. I start cracking like 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 a night doing this. And then around that time period, I'm just going on stream 8 hours a night, listening to people's music, losing my mind. But then I realized at a certain point that a guy who I had been working with before this had basically fucked up my tax situation. So like as No Jumper is hitting it big and I'm fucking making all this money, I'm also realizing like, oh no, you owe a lot of money. Like you are actually in the red right now. Like all this money that you think that you're making right now is going to have to get dumped back into paying off this fucking terrible tax debt that this fucking retard rang up under your shit. So nice. I was pretty bummed out by that, and it forced me to just do a shitload more of the streaming. And I kind of went into like a dark place, like mentally, where I was just like, just the realization that I had finally like really hit big with my business, and that I had to basically just like work my ass off and not pick my head up, not travel, not nothing for a year straight. That was like 2019, I think, if I remember correctly. And then I don't know. But then after that, like now the business is doing so good that all that shit just feels like a distant fucking memory. But it was definitely like, I feel like that was my final reality check in building the business, was like, oh, hey, you finally got successful. Look at this big ass amount of money that you owe tax-wise.
Give us all your money, yeah.
Ugh,
so now that you're up, like, are you looking at different business ventures? Are you like you involved in different investments and stuff like that?
I mean, I want to do the retail thing in New York and LA really bad, so that's kind of part of it. You know, like me and my girl, like buying this place was definitely the biggest investment that I made in recent years. You know, like me and my girl talk about buying more like houses and stuff like that. Like just kind of doing some more retail investments. You know, I have like a good stock portfolio and some crypto and stuff, but for the most part, I'm trying to like not think about my money that much and just grind content and just like really work my ass off and like just kind of not pay attention to how much money I have, and then just find things to do with it. But I'm like, I'm really, really happy just working right now and just like building what I've been building. So I don't know. I try not to think about the money shit that much.
I think it's time for actually, I got one more question before our famous question.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the content game that you haven't done that you want to do?
I haven't made a documentary.
Okay.
And there's part of me that wants to, but there's also a part of me that is just like, like, am I seriously gonna, like, you know, like,
why not though?
Probably because I mean, it would take me probably like 100 hours of my time, maybe like 200 hours of my time. I assume I'm gonna be traveling all over the place, interviewing a million motherfuckers. And the problem is that the first good interview I do for the documentary, I'm just gonna want to put it out on YouTube.
Yeah, he's gonna put
I'm gonna be like, fuck, I could drop that on YouTube right now and get 500K. Fuck, I want to do it so bad. I don't know. I figured out something that works for me with the YouTube thing. and I just really want to keep grinding it and just keep pursuing this shit, social media stuff. I mean, the weird thing is just that I'm like almost 40, and it's kind of like, damn, there's got to be a shelf life like on
But
what
is
you're
there, though?
doing.
I don't
Really?
think so though.
I mean, I don't know. It's just like at a certain point, do you matter less? Like, how do you stay relevant enough as you get older? That's the whole question, I think. But we have plenty of people that we can look to in their 50s. Joe Rogan's like 55, and he's
There you go.
obviously he's just as relevant as ever. So, I mean, there's plenty of people I'm looking to. But then also, it's like going beyond that, I think the next step for me for a long time has just been content. Wake up every day and grind content. But then sometimes, like, I know people who like, they've been working on software. They made like an app that will just like make your life way easier. There's like a product, and they wake up every day on pushing this product, or like, you know, just an invention. And that to me is like very appealing. The idea of it, of like, fuck, like just the idea, like maybe is that supposed to be a chapter in my life? I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Am I supposed to open, you know, just like create like a business? I don't know. Beyond content. What's beyond content? That's the biggest question I think about now. And I don't really have much of an answer, but for sure right now it's content. But there's got to be more.
The product game always looks nice and shiny and fun.
Same with the apps though.
You know what I mean? But then when you get there, maybe it's not the best.
maybe a nice dating app or something.
Now, if I had a great idea though, like if I really had an idea I believed in, I think I would go all in on it. But I don't, you know, I'm not gonna force it.
Nah, whatever. You know what? John Shahidi, shout out John Shahidi. He says when you strike oil, keep drilling. And I think you guys have done
That's
that.
what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Because a lot of people you will see get a seed of success. I even remember, like, I had a homie back in the day. We used to do these BMX vlogs, 2007, 2006, and they're funny as fuck. He was like the perfect like sidekick for me, just like this goofy ass black dude from Brooklyn with fucked up teeth, rode bikes, funny as fuck. And we did a couple of these vlogs together of him just talking shit, and we're just hanging out, riding bikes, whatever. He was killing it, and a bunch of people told him like, "Oh, you just being a goofy, you just acting like silly or whatever," and he didn't want to do it. When I think back on that, if he had actually been like, "Nah, I like this shit, let's keep making YouTube videos," and if I had seen the vision with him and I had kept chasing it, I might have got into YouTube fucking 5-6 years earlier than I did and have built something from way earlier. But like he had that little bit of hate come in, and he just chose to listen to it.
Nah, you can't.
And he delivers food now. And it's like, I fuck with him. Like, that's the homie. But like, when I think about it, it's like, look at how that tiny little bit of hate made him fall back on something that could have changed his whole life. And I'm the person instead where I do one interview that opens some doors for me, and I'm like, no, I'm all in. I'm going to take this tiny little fucking bit, and I'm going to go for it, you know? It's like
You're getting me fired up.
two
right
different
now.
types of people.
You're getting me fired up right now.
Okay, fuck. On that note, I know you got like 20 other interviews today, so we'll cut it here. Our famous question: we're the MBH podcast. Money buys happiness. Do you believe money buys happiness?
I do. I think that, you know, when I think about all the things I don't have to do or all the things that aren't a worry to me, when I think about all the things that were probably stressing my parents out when I was a kid, and the fact that none of those things stress me out, and that, like, dude, we spent like 10 grand to have fucking all this grass installed in our lawn and shit because the fucking gophers are chewing up through the fucking grass, right? And we spent fucking 10 grand to fix it, and then it ends up being the hottest day or week of the year fucking next, and the fucking sun kills a bunch of the grass that we just put in, and we fucking have to spend more money to get and you know what? It's like, all I want is a fucking nice looking yard, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we just blew 10 grand. Guess how much mental energy I put into that 10 grand? Zero. I don't fucking care. We gave it a shot. I don't care. The other day I went and I played poker at the casino and I won 50 grand. And did I care? Yeah, I felt okay, but I didn't really care that much. And it's like, I've gone to that casino and lost 20 or 30 grand. I don't care. That to me, like being able to not care gives you a lot of freedom. You know, I found $60 on the other day, $60 on the ground the other day on the street. And I was actually kind of bummed because I was like, if this happened to me in almost any other time period of my life, I would have been so happy. And because it happened within this period of time, I don't care. It's kind of unfortunate, but like, yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, money buys you happiness because if you have to go, like, what's the opposite of having money? The opposite of having money, my day looks like I have to wake up and do construction for like 9 hours. And it's like, it's still a living. And I respect anybody wake up and do construction for sure. I respect it, but I promise you that I'm probably more happy getting to like wake up and do whatever, or really the fact that I could go on vacation, or I could take the day off, I could go swim in the pool, I could go chill. Like the fact that I could take time off. I mean, those are the things that you don't have when you don't have money, is the ability to just be able to have the freedom to like, my girl is in Europe for 3 weeks right now with my kid and brought her assistant with her and is staying in nice ass hotels and stuff. Why? Because she's made a lot of fucking money over the last few years, and this doesn't really make a dent in her finances, you know? Like, you can be happy without money, but money definitely can help get you some happiness, you know, or at least some freedom. That if you can't be happy with money, then there's something seriously fucked up with you.
There you go.
Because if you have the access to everything in the world, you should probably be able to, with everything available to you, you should probably be able to find one thing that you really like doing, right? And money allows you that opportunity to basically do whatever you want, right?
Man, that's how I know you're a fucking podcaster and you've done this so long. No one has ever said that. And every time we ask someone the question, there's always like, you know, similarities between them. But
you got to be politically correct.
Well, but okay, because there are studies though that are like, they'll show you the cap of how much of where you'll stop getting happy. But I think the number is kind of low. It's like 150K a year or something.
I think it's even less. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I was making 150K a year, well, unfortunately I live in LA, so I actually don't even believe what I'm about to say. But you could like just live and have a decent life for 150K a year for sure. In LA, it actually would be pretty tough these days. 5 years ago, yeah, but like, dude, I mean, even just your spot where you're gonna live, you're gonna be spending $5,000 a month. So it's like, if you're having $10,000 a month coming in every month, I mean, that's a lot. But I mean, I don't know. It's like, I know the reality of it. I was broke my whole life until the past couple of years. And I'm so much happier just being able to just whatever. Like, I have a memory of like right before I really started getting money where like I went and bought a GoPro, right? On the company card. And I had like a business partner at the time who was like kind of overseeing the finance and stuff. And he calls me. He's like, bro, why the fuck did you buy that GoPro? Like, I could get one of those refurbished for $200. Like, you know, we don't really have money to be spending like that. I'm like, it's like $300. He's like, we don't have $300 to just be spending like whatever right now. And I'm like, fuck. Like,
I gotta get
I'm
rich.
broke, bro. Like, this sucks. Now it's like, okay, here's another thing that makes me happy. I go to the airport. I forgot my earbuds. I buy another pair.
That's a G move.
At the airport.
That's a G move.
And I leave them in my backpack so that way now I have like 3 sets of earbuds. Now, is it responsible to have spent like $1,200 on earbuds when realistically a couple of years from now these things are going to be obsolete? I'm not even going to want to use these. But reality is that, you know, I was able to like, you know, by spending that much money, I was able to like not be mad at myself for forgetting my earbuds, you know? Like,
life's a bit more convenient when you got money.
Yeah, it's like all these little itty bitty things that just get easier, you know?
100%.
We needed that answer, to be honest.
Yeah, that was a heater of an answer. Thank you.
Clip me. TikTok me. Ooh.
No, we
We're gonna
got you.
TikTok
We
the
got
fuck
you.
out of
Hey, you want a fucking challenge right now?
Yeah, I want a challenge.
And I got motivated from Mr. Beast and shit. Is that they say like you need to like offer money to your fans to make TikToks of your content because some of those will go viral. So if the person who makes the best fan TikTok of this interview of us talking, and I'm kind of leaning into the Money Buys Happiness contest because I thought that was kind of the best conversation.
100%.
But just whatever, I'll give $1,000 to the person who gets the most views on their TikTok from this podcast.
Okay.
Damn, you heard it.
first.
There you go. I'll
I
tweet
love
it
that.
and put it on my story and everything like that. But I want to test out that model.
That
We
they're
could be the
doing.
test, no problem.
But the only rule is that they have to tag and in the description they got to put No Jumper ADAM22 and you guys' podcast.
Yeah, we'll match it.
Yeah.
So
We're matching that
2,000.
shit.
Well, what about 2 winners so we can spread the love?
Okay.
Like that way.
Okay.
Okay.
2K and 2K.
Oh,
Yeah.
So two
Let's
winners.
go. 2 winners.
Two winners,
winners,
2K
2K
each
each.
winner.
Let's go for whoever
All
gets
right.
the most viral.
All right, you heard
Let's
it here
go.
first. Yo, if you guys made it this far, we love you, appreciate you. Like, subscribe, do the whole fucking thing. I'm not going to say it. Hate comments, like he said. We're going to be reacting soon.
Let's
We'll
go.
start hating, all right?
Let's
we love
go.
you guys. Adam, appreciate you, bro, for letting us in here and doing this interview off of a
Unreal.
fucking cold
Unreal.
DM. You're a legend. Appreciate you.
go.
And we out.
Appreciate you guys.